same language. To Eric.
Something else to make it run into the pathway?
Are you speaking to me?
Yeah.
I couldn't hear what you said. Good evening and welcome back to partly being in person and back to our owl. I hope that you can hear me and see me well. I am the president and I am going to, because Rob is not here today, I'm going to lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could all please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Today, stepping in for our Toastmaster, Fabiola, is Christina Stifler. Thank you for stepping in last time.
Thank you. Welcome to our Zooming members, as well as those here in person for the first time in months. This is so exciting. We have two guests with us tonight. I would like to introduce, normally we wouldn't have you come up, but I think if you don't, the people on the screen will know who you are. Tim, would you like to come introduce yourself first and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good evening. My name is Tim Bovee. I am here to see if I can learn how to speak more precisely and convey messages more effectively.
Excellent. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for joining us. And Carl, could you come share a little bit about yourself? This is Carl,
Yes.
been with us before.
Carl Pierce, been in this area for just over 20 years. I'm in the finance world of the wonderful world of mortgages. I work for Evergreen Home Loans. I am here because this is extremely uncomfortable, and I'm learning that if you run away from things that are uncomfortable, you probably just shouldn't. So that's why I'm here. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you both for coming. I'm confident that you'll find that we are a very compassionate group, and we're also a lot of fun. Before I got into Toastmasters, I had the impression that everybody wore suits and stuffy shirts, and you get your hands slapped if you did anything wrong. Well, fortunately, times have changed with Toastmasters. We are not that way. It is a lot of fun. We do have a regular schedule that we adhere to each week. The meetings are an hour, 5:30 to 6:30, and we stay very tight to that time. Part of Toastmasters is learning to manage meetings as well as learning to speak. Tonight, I will be the Toastmaster, and I'll also be serving as general evaluator. We have lots more members than this. They'll be back. Does anyone have a joke of the day? That's all right. Anybody online have a joke of the day?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Last week, I went to the confessional and said, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." "What was your sin, my son?" "Well, I swore last week and used some really awful words." "When did this happen?" "Well, Father, I was out golfing and I hit this incredible drive that was going to go 250 yards. Unfortunately, hit a power line that was hanging over the fairway after 100 yards and dropped right down to the ground." "So that's when you swore." "No, Father. Right after that, a squirrel ran out and grabbed the ball and started to run away with it." "Oh, so that's when you swore." "No, not yet. You see, an eagle flew down out of the sky, grabbed the squirrel, and started to carry it away." The amazed priest said, "So that's when you swore?" "No, because as the eagle carried the squirrel with the ball over the green, the squirrel dropped the ball, it hit a tree, went through some brush, hit a rock, caromed off the rock, went through the sand trap and onto the green and rolled to within 6 inches of the hole. The priest sighed and said, "So you missed the putt, didn't you?"
I don't get it. I don't play golf though.
Dean can explain it later.
I know nothing about golf.
If you're wondering about our this move, we discovered that when we applaud, which we used to do, it messes up the sound with the people who are on Zoom. So we do this instead for applause. Program changes. There is just one this evening. Fabiola apparently is in Florida. That's a long distance to be our Toastmaster. So I'm stepping in Fabiola this evening. At this point, I will change hats and go into general evaluator. The purpose of evaluation is for us to, as a group, be more conscious of things like timing and filler words, evaluating one another. There is a team that helps with the evaluation process each week. I would like to introduce you to my team at this point. We have one speaker this evening, and our speech evaluator is Eric Stepper. Eric?
Thank you, Ms. General Evaluator. I am privileged to evaluate Pat's speech. She is this is her first speech in a pathway called effective coaching. And for you newbies, there's all kinds of different pathways you can take, and we can help you get online and take a look at that and see which ones you want to do. Effective coaching. She wants to kind of show us how that she helps her students with their style. Timer, this speech will be 5 to 7 minutes. Her speech is entitled "In My Neighbor's Eyes." I will give my evaluation when called upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. The next member of our team this evening is our timer. Dean, would you explain your role, please?
Certainly. One of my favorite Mark Twain quotes goes, "I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long letter." The point being that crafting a concise and clear message is extremely difficult, and yet it's very important. So the role of the timer is to let you know how well you've done on staying within time. So for speaking, for Pat's speech, I will raise the green folder at 5 minutes, the yellow folder at 6, and the red folder at 7. Evaluations are supposed to be 2 to 3 minutes. So it will be the green folder at 2 minutes, yellow folder at 2.5, and red at 3. And for our table topics, the impromptu speaking, those are supposed to be 1 to 2 minutes. So it's green at 1 minute, yellow at 1.5, and red at 2. Good luck on staying within time. Hopefully you don't need it.
Thank you, Dean. The next member of our team is our grammarian. Lloyd Smith is our grammarian this evening. Lloyd, would you explain your role?
Thank you, Christina. I'm the grammarian tonight. The role of the grammarian is not to be the grammar police. Rather, it's to help us become aware of things which are not such great grammar, not precise words, that kind of thing. Another part of the duty is to create a word of the day. I decided to do something a little different today. There are 2 words of the day, which I have heard used incorrectly at least a half dozen times in the last week or so. The first one is effect, EFFECT, which is a change that's the result of the result or a consequence of an action or other cause. A sample sentence would be, using hard drugs can have lethal effects. Okay, it's a noun. The other word is affect, AFFECT, which is a verb, to have an effect upon, to make a difference, as in stormy weather can affect my mood. They're not the same, but it turns out that lots of people who write for newspapers and magazines seem to think they're the same.
Thank you. The challenge then is to use the words effect and affect when you speak this evening. We'll see how many times that happens. Lloyd will keep track of that. Also, any outstanding or egregious grammar that he hears. The last member of the team who I'd like to introduce you to this evening is Dawn, who will be our all counter. Dawn, could you share what you will be doing tonight?
So this is my first time having a role and my first role. So it will be my job to listen for ahs or ums or ers and well, so, but, like, I mean, you know, repetitions or other interesting ways of finding one's feet. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. One thing we've discovered,
So those are evaluations, you can just write down your thoughts about the speech, what you like, but maybe you could do better.
thank you, Eric.
If you don't say nice things.
One thing we've all discovered after being in Toastmasters is watching oftentimes the news, the number of filler words or political candidates, and it's this and that. And I had the opportunity to sit in on some preparation for meeting with our congressional representatives in Washington via Zoom, because I'm the board chair of Columbia Valley Community Health. The people from the state of Washington were presenting this, the people who are telling us what we needed to talk about. These are the topics. One gentleman who was giving us statistics, I couldn't even listen to him. I was sharing with Eric. I counted in a 10-minute speech, I believe, 91 ums or ahs before I gave up counting. It was very distracting to me, and I'm sure to everyone else. That's why we have what we call an ah counter. Someone to just help us realize what filler words we're using, then we can start getting those out of our conversations. We will now proceed to the next part of our program, which is speaking. Tonight, as Eric said, Pat Whitfield is our speaker. She is an instructor at Wenatchee Valley College. Her speech, Through My Neighbor's Eyes, is a reflection of her students' perceptions. Pat?
Thank you very much. James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed unless it is faced." That's something that we're dealing with in the United States and around the world at the present time, and have been predominantly for the last 2 years when it comes to racial bias. What got our attention was the brutal murder of George Floyd by a police officer who kept his knee on the neck of this young Black man for 9 minutes, and we got to watch the quote unquote execution. That's when we really became aware, consciously aware, since we were members of the audience at that. And there have been many programs, many activities related to communities examining racial bias. And Wenatchee is no exception. I am honored to be part of a group called the North Central Washington Equity Alliance. This group came out of Our Valley, Our Future, which was a wonderful dynamic that reached out in so many areas of the community. But the Equity Alliance chose to begin its work by finding out what ways we could support community organizations and what they needed to know in order to diminish or even identify racial bias within their organizations. 9 organizations out of 10 have no people of color on their boards. And yet, if we look at the demographic we have here in the Valley, we really have quite a diverse community. As I indicated, we interviewed 30 organizations, trying to identify what help they needed and how we could either help them ourselves or marshal the resources to do so. And one of the things that came out of it was a seminar once a month. Several members from the boards of these organizations meet with a very talented coordinator for a course called Learning How to People Better. And it's a very proactive, interactive kind of experience. But this awareness is not limited just to our valley, it's all around the world. I think the classic example of recognizing racial bias and attempting to address it has got to be South Africa. It's been many years now, but after they got rid of apartheid, South Africa founded a group called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And through their work, a Black president was elected. Who can tell me what his name was?
Mandela?
Yes, there you go, gold star on the forehead. Nelson Mandela became the president of South Africa. What a wonderful, wonderful way to identify that. In the United States, several months ago, we recognized the 80th anniversary of the moving of our Japanese US citizens to containment camps in very remote places during the Second World War. Not something that we were proud of, but we acknowledged it, that we did it, we regretted it, and we don't want to do it again. Probably one of the more recent examples that I can think of is the Super Bowl. How many people here watched the Super Bowl this year? Did you notice the difference in halftime this year? Beautiful set. However, the stars of the Super Bowl were all people of color, and the music that they played was primarily hip hop and rap, which generationally, if I look at us, maybe that wasn't the music that we would prefer, but we learned a lot for it. So there has been change. Well, I've been teaching college for more than 30 years, and I've taught many, many classes in diversity. In the interpersonal communication class that I'm teaching here at the college, there is a segment that is identified as communicating with diverse others. One of the things that I always introduce in this class is an essay by a person named Peggy McIntosh called White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. How many of you have ever heard of this? I recommend it to you highly. I have a copy with me. You can Google it. It's very inspirational reading because most of us who are white don't realize that we have white privilege because of the nature of how our country has evolved and the experiences that we have, which are quite different from those of people of color. And one of the things that McIntosh lists in her essay are 26 different day-to-day activities that she can involve herself in with no problem whatsoever, but that African-American friends of hers and coworkers cannot count on in their daily lives. And although the list is incomplete, it tends to shock and surprise everyone who reads it. whether they are white or whether they are people of color. I'd like to quote McIntosh, because she talks about social systems. What she says is, to redesign social systems, we need first to acknowledge their colossal unseen dimensions. The silences and denials surrounding privilege are the key political tools here. They keep the thinking about equality and equity incomplete. Protecting unearned advantage and conferred dominance by making these taboo subjects. Most talk by whites about equal opportunity seems to me now to be about equal opportunity to try to get into a position of dominance while denying that systems of dominance exist. The key word here is systems. And as I said, I share this with my students anytime I teach a course in diversity, and their responses are both informative and inspirational. What I'd like to do is share several students' reactions from this past quarter, right here in Wenatchee and through their eyes. This is one student's response. White privilege didn't stop my parents from immigrating from Mexico and creating 4 children with only labor jobs and nothing to their names except the clothes on their backs and a dream. It never halted me from defeating the odds I had stemming from stereotypes, past mistakes, and even my own struggles that I deal with every day attending college. Throughout the years, I have definitely seen firsthand racism and privileges, and it is an issue we do have that has yet to see greater progress. However, we have ultimately shut down the stereotypes and misjudgments that were thrown at us, even at an early age, working as young as 8 years old, and eventually having responsibilities at age 16. Though white privilege is alive, we as a community have never let it stop us or judge individuals with lighter skin complexions, but instead, we put in the work that even with the advantages these individuals have, we could do. Many of us are exactly like our parents and simply want to fulfill a dream with hard work and dedication, even if the odds aren't in our favor, or even if we have to work twice as hard. Another student, young woman, said, one of the conditions Peggy McIntosh states is, and I quote, if I need to move, I can be pretty sure of renting or purchasing housing in an area which I can afford and in which I want to live. Being a person of color and female, I can't count on that condition. I will have to face many difficulties to prove I have the financial income. If I were to have white privilege, I would have less paperwork and right away a place to live. And the student goes on, another condition McIntosh states, I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed. My student goes on to say, in reality, I, as a Mexican female, have to be more cautious of my surroundings to make sure nobody is following me or trying to harass me. This is perceptions of several students of color. I didn't have the time to include those who were white to give their perceptions, but this particular document really awakens in them an awareness of a fairly serious and profound social problem that we're trying to deal with right now. The thing about bias is that we tend to like people who are like ourselves, and we tend to be uncertain, suspicious, or we dislike those who are different from us. And that's the root of all bias, is the uncertainty, the suspicion, the not knowing. Having looked through my neighbor's eyes, I'd like to leave you with a thought that is attributed to our Indigenous friends and colleagues. And that is, Lord, let me not judge my brother until I have walked a mile in his moccasins. Thank you.
Timer, could we have a minute, please, for each of us to complete our comments or Pat?
Go.
Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this around so that they can sort of eyeball it. I do not expect you to read it. She wrote that article in 1989, and it's not gotten archaic at all.
Dean, are we close to a minute?
Yep, you are right on a minute. See, you didn't even need me.
That's pretty good since the second hand on the clock in here isn't working. Another thing that I wanted to remind us of now that we're back in person is to hand off the lectern with a handshake or a fist bump.
Oh.
That happens should happen whenever we are in a situation when there are multiple speakers. Handing it off, then the new speaker establishes it as their territory, and when they're done, they hand it off to the next speaker for the handshake or fist bump. The next portion of our meeting is table topics. Our table topics master tonight, who will explain all about that, is Barbara Walters. Barbara?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Welcome. The purpose of the table topics master is to facilitate table topics where guests and members will have the opportunity to practice their impromptu speaking. So I'm going to introduce a topic and call on speakers who will be given 2 minutes, or at the max 2 minutes, I believe, to speak on the subject. So tonight's topic is lifelong learning. And I have to say it's even really closely connects with Pat's speech as well. The term kaizen is a Japanese word that literally translates to continuous improvement or change for the better. It is more than just a word. It's a philosophy that represents striving for constant improvement in all areas of our life. The Kaizen approach consists of 5 founding elements: teamwork, personal discipline, improved morale, quality circles, and suggestions for improvement. Very similar to Toastmasters, I've got to say. And I quote the president of Toastmasters: "From the confidence we gain through public speaking and interpersonal communication, we develop the habits of lifelong learning as well as the art of leadership." So today I kind of stole this idea off of another Toastmaster, or excuse me, a site, Toastmaster site. And so what I did is I browsed Wenatchee Valley College's continuing education catalog, as well as other organizations that provide continuing education classes here locally. So I selected a number of courses that I myself would be interested in taking. So what I'm going to ask each of you, each of the table topic recipients, I'm going to give you a course title, and then I'm going to ask you to explain why you signed up to take that specific course. So I have a number of courses, you guys. I have like 2 pages worth of courses here. And Pat, yes, I think one of you is on here as well. So as a reminder, if you do not like the course that I give you, you can select a different course. You can ask me for a different course, or if you know of a course that you would like to speak on, please feel free. So, and I just want to make sure that everybody, including Pat, do you want to be?
Oh, sure.
Okay, everybody wants to, okay. All right, so my first class, I'm going to start off easy. Trying to think. Pat, I'll start with you. Pat's. There's a course called Whoopie Pies. This course will walk you through a traditional chocolate with homemade marshmallow cream recipe, providing the basics of whoopie pie building and options for customizations. Bring an apron and your creativity.
And you want to know why I would take the
Why you would take this course? Yeah.
Well, first of all, because it has, oops, sorry about that.
Sorry. picking on you. I didn't mean to pick on you.
Who could resist a course with a name like Whoopie Pie? Obviously, it sounds engaging, it sounds fun, it sounds entertaining. And then you mentioned the word chocolate. Chocolate is one of my favorite things in the whole world. After dinner every night, I have 2 squares of dark chocolate. And that is my treat. I love dark chocolate. So anyone who could resist that must just be really clunky and no fun. And I think about the people who would take the class. It could be very convivial, and that would be even nicer to be with a group of people who are enchanted by the title, who love chocolate, who like to create good things to eat and share them with others. Hands down, I would join definitely. And then I would wait for the effects.
Thank you, Pat. Dean, I'm going to pick on you next. Somebody else want a time for him? Dean, your course is Create Your Emergency Rapid Exit Plan. This course gives you the tools to be prepared should a disaster hit. Emergency Rapid Exit Plan.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. That is certainly a relevant course up here for application up here in Winthrop because of all of the wildfires that we've had in recent years. And in fact, I've spent considerable time looking into that very topic. So arguably, I might be able to teach the class. However, it's very helpful and very interesting. And even aside from all the wildfires we've had up here, I became interested in that sort of thing over the years because of various unpleasant events that have happened. And I realized I really needed to give some thought to what are the poor things that could happen to me and what am I going to do if they do in fact happen to me, and how am I going to mitigate that risk? So not only does it include wildfires, but it includes having your bank accounts hacked, your online presence hacked, identity theft. As I mentioned, wildfires. We also live on a riverbank that can at times get a little bit elevated in the spring during the runoff. So we have to worry about floods. So there are a whole bunch of risks that we all have in our lives, and I'm sure I haven't thought of all of them. I haven't worked out mitigation plans for all of them. And so I would sign up for the class to get a refresher on that very important topic, because quite frankly, I'm tired of being surprised by awful events and not knowing what to do about it. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you.
Dean, your time was 1 minute and 35 seconds.
Okay, Lloyd. I'm going to give you the class Introduction to Landscape Design for Homeowners. In this class, you'll learn basic knowledge and skills to critically evaluate the landscapes around you, to draw in class a basic landscape plan for your own property.
Thank you. That's an interesting topic for me. I moved into a condo in 2016, in part to avoid anything connected with landscaping. My landscaping activities now are mostly standing in my front window watching the contractor mow the lawn and prune the bushes and whatnot. While I think how happy I am, I'm not doing it. However, I was elected president of my HOA board in, I guess, January 1st. And one of the things we continuously deal with is landscaping issues. A lot of people who live in, there are about, what is it, 69 units in the development. And lots of people don't grasp the concept of a condo. You own and control what's inside. You don't own and control what's outside. So we're getting constant complaints about what kinds of plants are being planted and how the roses are being pruned and whatnot. And spend a lot of time telling people, well, our contractor is a master gardener, and I think she understands how to prune a rose, probably better than any of the rest of us understand it. But that doesn't stop anybody. A couple of years ago, we did away with our arborvitae, the advice of one of those, what's that called, the fire, you know what I mean? Firewise inspection. And we were told that kind of a stunning image is that you should think of each arborvitae as being a 5-gallon bucket of gasoline. And that was enough to make us think, yeah, we need to take out the 270 of them that we had planted all around. Those things are great when they're little bitty things and you think, wow, this is great. It's going to fill up the landscaping. And then you think, oh, it's not so great. It filled up the landscaping. Anyway, I don't do any landscaping. I don't want to learn about it. I'm going to sleep through the class.
Dawn, I am assigning you to plant-based diets. Here in this class, to learn about the benefits of plant-based diets, information about different variations, and some cooking recipe ideas to boot.
I am interested in this class because I'm always wondering why plant-based diet is a label, because plants feed animals even, and plants are, I mean, we don't eat rocks, but we eat plants and we eat things that eat plants. I understand what organic is. I understand what diets that eliminate or are based on particular foods are, but every time I see plant-based diet, I think my diet is always plant-based. So I'm curious, and I'm going to find out what the logic is behind the diet, what a plant-based recipe even means. I haven't actually purchased any foods labeled plant-based because I don't understand the label. It's different from vegetarian. Apparently it's different from vegan. So what is a plant-based recipe? What are the nutritional principles that contribute to a plant-based diet as opposed to other kinds of diet?
Thank you, Dawn. I did not know that. I already learned something new. I didn't know plant-based diet was different than being a vegan. So, all right, Eric. You are going to take bird watching basics for beginners. This hands-on course will use a variety of field guides, web-based tools, and bird models, and several types of optics to better understand bird watching.
I don't know why I possibly look like a bird watcher.
Are you?
I'm going to give you a real life example. I am a lifelong learner. I just love learning and discovering new things. I newly retired a year ago in January. I dabble with painting, art, acrylics, and oil. And Christine and I have taken pastel classes together, and we've taken alcohol ink classes together. But it's probably been 6 years, 7 years. I'm starting to settle into oil. I was watching on Faceplant, there's a lady there, Jennifer Evenhoose, who's a real well-known pastel painter. She recommended a book by Brian Rettenberg. So I went online, he has like 80 videos on YouTube. I've been watching those, and those are fascinating. And there's a style I like, and the way he does it, and his philosophy, and I just love that. So I have downloaded the curriculum at Matthew Valley College. And because I'm a senior citizen, I can attend those classes for $5 tuition if the class isn't full. So I'm going to email the instructor, and I am fully looking forward to this class and learning what he knows and how to get better. Now that I know the kind of style I want, the medium I want, I'm ready to be fully engaged. And I appreciate Wenatchee Valley College having the course and making it easy for us to do. Real life example. Oops.
Thank you. Christina, you're going to take Zumba Body Blast. It's a comprehensive aerobic conditioning and body playing class.
Thank you. Yes, I am Zumba. I've taken Zumba classes at Works a number of times. It's a lot of fun. Generally, I go the same direction that we're supposed to. Every now and then, the class is going one way and I'm going the other. Doesn't work out quite as well. Probably if I took it for a full quarter like that, I might be able to get that down. The course that I took at Works that I really enjoyed was combat. That's one where you really have to be careful where your punches are going, because as we move to the side and punch at the same time, if you're going the wrong way, you can take somebody out. But it also comes in handy if, like your student, she was alone somewhere. You can go into a combat stance and people will just steer very clear because they're not sure if there's something going on up here or if you're actually going to punch them. When I was in college, I took a law class, communications law class. It was a night class at the UW, which meant I was coming back across campus fairly late by myself. So I always wore my clogs, my wooden clogs, and I figured out how I could kick them off resourcefully. And I would recite law classes out loud as I walked across the campus. And people just steered very clear. So there are all kinds of things you can do with the skills of Zumba or combat, or simply using your vocal skills that you learn in Toastmasters as defensive mechanisms, or for your humor, that works too. Thank you.
Okay, Tim and Carl, do you want to take on a class?
Ah,
All right. I am going to give you, okay, Tim, I'm going to give you public speaking. Preparation and delivery of speeches to a public audience focuses on the improvement of one's communication skills through topic choice, research, organization, and outlining of content. Use of voice, body, and sound. Watch out, the instructor might be in the room.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak on a subject that is near and dear to my heart, public speaking. I'm hoping to affect a meaningful change in my life by attending a class to learn how to speak in public and how to precisely get the message across that you're trying to talk about, how to bring your enthusiasm for the subject to the audience and engage the audience. I actually have never taken any kind of classes like this before, or any classes at all, that for that matter. When I got done with high school, I was done with classes. So, so now here, 45 years later, we're thinking about taking more classes and learning a little bit more about being not a lifelong learner, because I have been a lifelong learner, but an organized, maybe in an organized manner, lifelong learner. So the effect of which will be long lasting, and I can't help but feel totally worthwhile. So thank you very much for letting me talk about this.
I'm not so sure I'm ready to start.
You're not ready? You sure you want to try?
Sure, I'll try.
Okay.
It's been decades.
An easy one? What's,
I don't, that's just, yeah, give it to me.
okay, so I will give you,
You
Just
did.
go up and talk about class you got.
yeah, that's true. I'll just give you wilderness, first aid, and CPR. This hands-on American Red Cross course is in partnership with the mountain-oriented first aid, and will give you the tools necessary to strategize what to do in an emergency situation,
Okay,
or any course you want.
okay, that's great. To reference it, where did you read that one? Okay, I got it. Okay, so get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's why we're here. The class that I would potentially or hypothetically take would be this wilderness first aid and CPR, which is probably a good thing, because as I sit back and reflect on my relationship with my wife, who is fully certified to do CPR and all that stuff, but she also knows how to use a gun and carry, which means if something happens to me, our family's just fine. Okay, but if something happens to her, we're in trouble. So there would be some value for me to educate myself in some survival skills like first aid and CPR. So I guess that's really the short of the, or the, yeah, I guess the short of the long is it would be a very valuable class for me to take. Thank you all for your time. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that takes a lot of bravery. So that is it. I believe I got everybody. And I just want to, at the end, encourage everybody, lifelong learning, check out the classes available at the college. There are so many wonderful courses to take. I know my husband and I are signing up to do some as well. So thank you.
Thank you. That was lots of fun. Thank you for participating. One reason we do table topics every week and have the opportunity to speak spontaneously is because that really is the way we speak most of the time. Conversations with people, whether it's through business or through something like Chamber Business After Hours, we're often and always in opportunities to speak off the cuff, and practicing that is great to do. I have now on my general evaluator hat. We will hear from our evaluation team, get their responses to how we did tonight. I'll begin with Eric for the evaluation of Pat's speech. Eric.
You evaluate. When we do evaluations in Toastmaster, we want to be very positive, and we want to pick out something that maybe they can work on. And we do evaluations according to their skill level and their longevity in the club. Like Lloyd, I would be very tough on because he's given dozens and dozens of speeches, and he wants to get better. He knows that I want him to get better. The rest of you guys, if you haven't done a lot of speeches, you want to be very positive and give them maybe something to work on. Some of the people here use the Oreo method, which is positive, positive, negative, positive, positive. And tonight I want to get the negatives out of the way because there aren't that many. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a conversation with Pat and you guys are listening in. In my neighbor's eyes, I always enjoy it when you give speeches, Pat, because you're very professional, and I enjoy that. You had great eye contact. You looked at everybody with a resting gaze. What I mean by that is you looked at them and you got their eyes, and not just did the sprinkler thing. And you looked at everybody, even over here. And I appreciate that. It shows that you're engaged. One thing on this evaluation form, it says you excelled at, things you may want to work on, and something to challenge yourself. To challenge yourself, your eye contact was great, except that sometimes you look up at the ceiling, kind of, I don't know if you were looking for what you were going to speak, because you spoke very well and it was just very connected. So that's something maybe just to work on, okay? You had great pace and great variation of pace and cadence and gestures, and you had your voice inflection, and just made the speech more engaging. I appreciate that. You had good use of notes. Most of the speech was right off the cuff. But when you use notes, you look at them, grab your thought, and look right back up. And it was just very, very seamless. It was very nice use of notes. You had a soothing voice and a warm, confident style. It was very conversational. And I appreciated that. It got me to where forgot I was doing an evaluation, to snap out and pay attention. And when you read, you're a good reader. Not everybody can read and read well, but you read with good pace and you read very naturally. A lot of people will read in a different voice than what they speak with, and yours is very, very good. One thing you may want to work on is speech length. We're read for quite a while.
Actually, it was timed at 6 minutes and I knew I went well beyond 6 minutes.
Yeah.
'Cause I did a lot of ad-libbing.
Yeah. And with the ad-libbing was great because it was very seamless. But you'll need to practice and affect the speech length. Yeah. General evaluation.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. It was a very effective evaluation. The next member of my team who will be reporting tonight is our timer, actually, Dean. Tell us how we did with time, Dean.
Certainly. Pat, you spoke for 9 minutes and 52 seconds on your speech. You slightly made up for that on the table topics by speaking for 53 seconds, which was a little under. I was 135. Lloyd, you were right at 2 minutes. Dawn, you were 1:50. Eric, 1:53. Christina, 2:01. I'm sorry I didn't get the names of our guests, partly because the sound has been less than good. So guest number 1 was 1:41 and guest number 2 was 1 minute. And Eric, your evaluation was 3:19, although I think the first 40 to 50 seconds were explaining your role. So if I subtract that out, you were well within time. And that completes my timer's report.
Thank you, Dean. The next member of our team tonight is Lloyd Smith, who was our grammarian. Lloyd?
Thank you, Christina. Word of the day, didn't get many takers. One, Pat.
We only have 2.
Really?
Yes,
Oh, I
we
didn't
did.
get it. Sorry about that.
Tim?
Or Tim, I'm sorry.
Good old Bill, yeah.
We only have
Just
one
an
of
adult,
those.
probably late for supper, that's all.
I remember it well. Anyway, not many takers, but on the other hand, that probably was because there weren't any places to fit it in. We heard something kind of subtle, but really interesting, and from both Pat and Christina. It took me a while to realize why or what I was hearing, but both of you speak in complete sentences and complete paragraphs. And that's rare. That's rare for people to do that. It's a skill that's worth developing, but it's a difficult skill to develop as well. Let's see, we had an interesting word. Dean used the word mitigation, and he used it correctly. Many people use mitigate to mean to stop. It actually means to make better or to improve. And so Dean used it correctly. On the other side of the coin, several of us have developed the tendency to drop the ing endings on words and put an a instead, like gonna, kinda, shoulda, that kind of thing. Barb, you threw in a kinda, and Eric and I both had a gonna, and there were probably some others too. But those are relatively minor things. Finally, this has nothing to do with grammar, but Christina mentioned something that's really important as a real world skill. If you act slightly crazy, no one will mess with you.
It works.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lloyd. It works pretty well if you talk to the canned food at Safeway too. I've done that. The next member of our team is Dawn, who has been our owl counter this evening. Dawn, would you share your report with us, please?
Thank you. This was a wonderfully educational experience for me. I highly recommend it to the other beginners. It made me very aware of us. And so much so that I was having trouble speaking because all I could think about was I'm not going to say those words. But Barbara did really well. I noticed with some people, like Barbara, Christina, Lloyd, Pat, anything that sounds like or it's always very small. Our experienced speakers, it seems like it's just a tiny thing. I'm not even sure to put it there, but one, two so's, a couple of kind of repetitions, facilitate an or of, and this, I'm a beginner at this, please correct me or help me if I say anything wrong. Carl was at 7 ums. That's pretty good for a beginner. I think I was at something like 20. So there was a so and a the. Not bad, Carl. Christina, one like, one as, and a kind of a this that wasn't, I think, I wasn't sure if it was a filler or not. Eric, so like, Dean, one one and, 2 little restarts. I don't know if that's a thing to count. You start a sentence and then you decide you want to start it another way. Lloyd, 4 ums, very tiny ones. 1, you know, also barely there. And this, I don't know if this is a problem or not, but there was an anyway. Again, I'm trying to really give feedback to the more experienced speakers. Don had 2 ums that I noticed. I don't know if anyone counted for me. An and, a so. Pat, all I could get was 1 questionable and. I was so impressed. I was so impressed by Pat. What I noticed from my own experience today is that it's very challenging to keep those filler words out and still sound eloquent and relaxed, because I have to choose one or the other. So Pat, fantastic. Tim, yeah. Tim had an and 2 so's, 1 like, 1 you know, and I. But I loved how eloquent for a supposedly inexperienced speaker. You said like you've never done this before. You just like, whoa, came out there with this great enthusiasm, and I'm like, I'm listening. What are you talking about? So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Don. Great job.
Don, I was keeping track and I only heard one from you. And your speech, you didn't look like you were struggling. It was coherent. So good job.
Thank you. Very good job, all of our team this evening. I will now turn it back over to our president for closing remarks. One time.
Well, actually, we're a minute over and we said we would get you out of here on time. So my closing remarks will be short. Thank you for coming this evening. I hope that you both consider joining our club. I am also not an experienced speaker. I have learned so much already from the group here. And I also understand what you're saying, Don, about trying to concentrate on what you're saying and not getting those ums and uhs. All right, have a great evening, everyone. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, was there any announcements? I apologize. Any announcements before we close out? No, okay. Good night. Good night, Dean. Good night, Don.
Okay, please, we download.
Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah.